Overtime!
Welcome back to Overtime Arcade. I'm Charlie, and we're out here in the garage making progress on my Jungle King arcade game restoration project. And yeah, we've still got a long way to go. If you remember, when I picked up this game, it was a mess. It was basically a stripped, empty cabinet. It had been converted to a 4-player Ninja Turtles, and they cut into the cabinet to fit this, aircraft carrier-sized control panel onto the cabinet. It had been painted black, and I've been spending a ton of time trying to strip the paint off of this cabinet. I've spent the better part of the last day and a half just doing this side, and I'm barely halfway. The front, that's new. That wasn't too bad. It's really just these two sections with green paint that I had to clear the black paint off. And yeah, it's just a ton of work with isopropyl alcohol and magic erasers, and slowly and laboriously erasing that paint off. I did this other side maybe a month ago, so slowly making progress. And what I'm uncovering, the original stenciled artwork. This isn't perfect, but like I always say, I'll take a C quality original over an A quality reproduction any day. And the reason that I'm using the magic eraser technique with this one instead of the paper towels and the saran wrap and all that is because this is a particle board or MDF cabinet, right? So this is like basically sawdust pressed together with glue or whatever. It's not plywood, so I really don't like doing the paper towel and saran wrap technique with MDF with particle board, just because it'll likely absorb all of that moisture and expand. You can see a little bit right here where the raw particle board is exposed, kind of get raised up a little bit like when I run my finger over it. But yeah, so it's very, very slow going, and it's not perfect, but it'll look original. Maybe we'll touch this up a little bit. One cool thing, I was able to expose this State of Mississippi tax sticker underneath the black paint. So this is still in relatively good shape. From the year 1982, which is of course the year that Jungle King was released. And I've always seen up on top here, if I can get a good angle for you, a couple more tax stickers from Mississippi. This one from 1983 and this one from 1984, which is pretty cool, telling me that this thing was in service, in operation, at least for those 3 years, those 3 tax years in the state of Mississippi. So yeah, I'm going to keep stripping this paint off, and then we'll be able to address, repairing the damage to the sides of the cabinet. But one thing I don't think I showed you when I picked this thing up, let me get you mounted on the tripod real quick, is this ridiculous control panel. So I don't know if this was a bootleg Ninja Turtles conversion or whatever, but this is the monstrosity. Is it even fitting in frame? That was mounted onto this cabinet. So just to, get a little perspective on what that looked like. My goodness, and like what's ridiculous is these Taito or Taito or whatever, however you say it, I've always said Taito, cabinets are pretty small. They're really kind of, closer to a cabaret, certainly in height. They're very short cabinets kind of next to the Outrun, even though the Outrun Mini is on a dolly. They're about the same height. It's the same height as that Sega Outrun Mini cabaret. And yeah, so tiny little cabinet to begin with just a 19-inch monitor, and trying to squeeze 4 players around that, just no bueno. But you don't want to watch me just strip and paint off of this cabinet, slowly using the magic eraser to reveal the artwork. So what I thought we'd work on in this episode is turning our attention to the power supply. Yes, the infamous Taito linear power supply. So in another video, I tested and showed that the Jungle King board set that I was able to get is perfectly working. I had a JAMA adapter. We plugged it into one of my JAMA cabinets. It's working great. That's awesome. But all the other guts of the cabinet, I have to figure out, because right now this thing is, basically completely empty. There's a little bit of residual wiring That's about it. I am happy that I have the marquee lights, the incandescent bulbs. Basically, these are coin door bulbs that light the marquee, kind of like some like Pac-Man cabarets and that sort of thing. But a lot of the guts, I basically need to replace all of them. And I got a ton of these parts from Overtime Arcade channel member Photoboy, who also has a YouTube channel called Random Fun and Games. I'll put a link in the video description down below. He's been doing a ton of cool arcade videos lately. You should definitely check him out, throw a subscription his way. Anyway, he basically donated a bunch of parts to me. So I got a complete wiring harness and a complete transformer assembly and power supply and a coin door and a coin bucket and lots of other bits and pieces. I think I did that in my Christmas special unboxing, like, Christmas presents under the tree or whatever. So really, really grateful to Photoboy, who, like I said, basically donated all these parts to me, which is absolutely amazing. And, we're going to start from the power and, see if we can get this power supply working. So there was a remnants of this originally in the bottom of the cabinet. If the gimbal will follow me over here, this is what was originally in the base of the cabinet. It did have the metal plate and the isolation transformer, but it was really kind of hacked up and cut. And, the sort of plugs over here kind of all messed up. So rather than messing with that, we're going to use the one that Photoboy sent me, which is awesome because it's also got, it's all in good shape, right? There's actually supposed to be 2 sets of plugs on the other side. And this linear power supply PCB right here, which, let me tell you, this thing is notorious. People just seem to absolutely loathe this thing. So while people will often, repair and rebuild other linear power supplies like Williams, and I've done several of those, or Nintendo or whatever, for some reason, I've never had one of these before myself, the power supplies, these specific power supplies that you find in Jungle King, Jungle Hunt, Elevator Action, Kicks, Alpine Ski, whatever, people just really, really don't like these. I'm not entirely sure why. They have a reputation for, I don't know, burning up, going bad, failing, whatever. And it's got a bit of a ridiculous design. And in fact, nobody actually sells rebuild kits or cap kits, for this thing. And it's weird, like, there's really only 3 electrolytic capacitors on this thing. 2 of them are these giant filter caps. There's another large axial cap right here. Everything else is TANTs and ceramic caps and whatever. It's got 4 2N3055 bottle cap transistors, 1 on a small heat sink on the power board right there, and 3 mounted on this remote heat sink, sort of similar to what Williams did. It's got these 4 transistors over here as well, 3 bridge rectifiers, these dials to adjust voltages, and it's got 8 different fuses. And so this thing is just really, really kind of crazy. But so am I, right? So, what normal people do is they rip this thing out, they throw it away, and they install a modern switching power supply, and they get an adapter, and everything's great, right? But that's not me. I'm really a stickler for originality. So I'm going to go on this fool's errand trying to get this original Taito linear power supply working again. So I figured what we would do here is really just kind of, plug this in before I do any kind of rebuild work and test it out. I'm prepared to, buy new caps. There's a bunch of tantalum caps on this board I might need to replace. I'm prepared to replace all of the transistors. I almost certainly will replace all of these headers and put new trifurcons and do the replace the corresponding side on the harness. Just to ensure good connection. The only thing I've done so far is I've pulled and tested all of the fuses. So there's actually 5 on the power board right here, 2 down here, 2 over here, and 1 over here. There's 2 on this sort of plug assembly over here, and then another one sort of, this is like a, this box has the line filter. So this is the power cord coming in. So this is the line fuse. And so I pulled all of them, made sure they were the correct values, and they are, and made sure they were intact and getting a good connection. So the fuses are good to go. I've got so it's kind of a couple different pieces here. This is, like I said, the power cord coming through, and this giant box really only has the line filter in there, I think. Comes down here and plugs into this part here, which comes in into this sort of plug assembly, and you get a service outlet that gives you just the line voltage. And this is somewhat similar to what you might see on Atari transformer assemblies. This sort of like programs it for the right voltages, and this is set for, and I don't know if you'll be able to see, yeah, right there, 120 volts. So I think there were other sort of plugs you could put in here for different voltages for different regions around the world. And then these two plugs run to this power harness that goes to our main cabinet switch right here, and two interlocks, one for the coin door and one for the back door. So I've got all that wired up. And then that comes through here, and that's all just to provide AC voltage to the isolation transformer and the rest of the power supply. And I've been spending some time with the schematics, kind of figuring out what's going on. And then that feeds AC into the isolation transformer, which does a couple of things. It breaks out a couple of voltages, so it sends a bunch of voltages to the power supply board. It also sends voltages over here, gives you line voltage for the monitor, and I think potentially for a marquee light, like a different, like a fluorescent style marquee light that we don't use in this cabinet. And there's also this 6.3 volts AC outlet for the incandescent bulbs in the I'm assuming like the coin door and that light up the instructions on the bezel. I'll show you that in a little bit, what that looks like. So yeah, then we have voltages coming from the isolation transformer into the linear power supply board. We've got three different bridge rectifiers, one here, and a smaller one over here. And yeah, it creates the plus 5 volts, negative 5 volts, and I think plus and minus negative 12, if I'm not mistaken. We've got 4 different LED lights that we want to see lit. So basically, I'm just going to go for broke here. I've got it all wired up, and I'll get you mounted on the tripod for this moment of truth. All right, so what we're hoping to see when I fire this thing up is a couple of things. We want to see nothing catch on fire. We want to see 4 red LED lights come on. I've got my multimeter plugged into the, you're going to be able to see that, into the 6.3 volts that would go to the incandescent bulbs that light the instruction card on the instructions on the, it's a backlight for the instructions on the bezel. So that's what we're kind of hoping for. So this should be around 6.3 volts. These 4 LED lights should turn on, and we shouldn't see any smoke, no fire, nothing like that at all. So keep your fingers crossed for me. I am plugging in the main power cord right now. That's plugged in, okay? And I'm going to, over here, I've got the, oh, the power switch was already on. Oops. So I've got my 2 interlock switches. So I'm going to pull one and I'm going to pull the other. Okay, something blue. Okay. Something blue. So for a split second, I think you saw all 4 lights did turn on. I kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye. I'll go back and we'll take a look at the I'll go and take a look at the footage. Maybe I'll do like a super slow-mo right here. But they flashed on for a second, but none of them are lit right now. And I don't know. I do have, 6.7 volts, coming out of where 6.3 should be. So I think that's probably okay. So yeah, I've got some work to do here. Let me actually turn this off and let this power down for a second. So I believe there is an overvoltage there's actually a couple overvoltage protection circuits in this cabinet. So we might have blown a fuse. Let's see. And there's like a couple of crowbar circuits where if the 5 or 12 volts gets too high, it basically, like a crowbar, opens up a circuit and it stays open until you power the thing off. So let me do this. Let me, it's powered down, hopefully discharged enough. I'll see if those lights flash on again, because that'll tell me that the crowbar circuit maybe is working. or I think these 2N3055s, at least one, maybe more of them, act as a voltage regulator. I'm not entirely sure. We could have a bridge rectifier out. We could have all kinds of things going on. So let me try turning it on again. Here we go. I'm going to look very closely at these lights. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right. The only ones I saw flash this time were over here, which is that's plus 12, that's plus 5, that's negative 5, and this is negative 12. So we've still got the voltage over on the, turn it off again, on the 6.3 volts. Let me do two things. Let me go check all these fuses real quick with the continuity test on my multimeter, and yeah, kind of take it from there. So I'll come right back. Okay, so here's what I discovered. I had in fact blown a fuse. I blew this 2 amp fuse right here. These two are 10 amps. These two down here are 4 amps. I blew the 2 amp fuse on this power supply. So I've got a new one plugged in there. It's a 2 amp, 250 volt fast blow fuse. I'm guessing that we'll probably blow it again once I power this thing back up. But yeah, and the fact that we were still seeing something happening over here on the 5 and 12 maybe makes me think that the issue is coming with you know, one of the negative voltages that are down here. And again, I could be wrong. I think these two larger bridge rectifiers make the 5 and 12 volts, and then this smaller one makes the negative voltage. I'm not entirely sure, but that's kind of going to be my first candidate. I'm also definitely going to replace the 40-year-old 2N3055 power transistors. I don't think I have 4 on hand. I try to keep a few with me at all times. I don't know if I have 4. So we'll kind of make an order and start putting this thing back together. But I want to fire this up again and see if that fuse does in fact blow. The other thing I did was I hooked up the harness to the 6.3 volt connector there. That actually goes to this set of green wires with these 3 little bayonets with lights in them. And like I mentioned, so here is the plastic bezel shroud thing that goes around the monitor. And if you see down there, there's like a little cutout for 3 of these spring-loaded lights to kind of clip into. And then the glass bezel would sit in front of that with all of the artwork around the viewing screen. And then there's instructions down here that get backlit by those lights so you can read them in a dark arcade, which is kind of neat. So I robbed 3 of the lights from the marquee light and put them into those bayonet holders, and I tested them with my multimeter, and they all have, you know, around 4.5 ohms of resistance on those bulbs, so I think they're okay. So hopefully we'll see at least those 3 lights light up. Maybe we'll see these LEDs flash again. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't gone back and looked at the footage yet. Maybe we'll see the 2 amp fuse sort of fire up. Here we go, we'll get nice and close here to get a nice view of what's going on. So we want to see, actually, well, I'll show you the bulbs in a second. So we want to see these 4 LEDs light up, and maybe we'll see a little light show from the fuse. So here we go. We got the new 2 amp fuse in, and let me pull this interlock. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. I think out of the corner of my eye, I saw that fuse blow. So that's unfortunate. We're going to have to do some work to rebuild this power supply. But there's something working. Over here, we've got our 3 lights burning nice and bright. So those are 47s, 47 bulbs, I guess you would call them. Often you'll find 44s and 47s. So these are 44s, and I'm wondering how it gets the correct voltage out to the marquee light if it's not coming from that plug. But anyway, I'm sure there's a correct way that it works. So yeah, let me go and order some parts here, and we can start, once those come in, we can start rebuilding this infamous Taito linear power supply. So stay tuned for that. Okay, I spent some more time going through the manual, and it turns out that the fuse that I keep blowing, F3 over here, the manual says that that's designed to protect against short circuits. So I pulled the PCB out of the transformer assembly off of the plate, flipped it around, and immediately noticed this is BR1 over here and Q5 over here. Really, really, really bad scorching. BR1 is, I believe, the 5-volt bridge rectifier, and Q5 over here is a 2N3055, very common power transistor that you find in like AR2s and that sort of thing. And both of these are really, really scorched. And often, you know, a sign of a short circuit is heat. So immediately this drew my attention. And I actually went ahead and removed both of those parts. So here is the old Q5 2N3055, and maybe this has been replaced before. Is that an 86 date code? I think that's what that says. So, you know, 8628 would mean the 28th week of 1986 is when this transistor was manufactured. And here is the bridge rectifier I removed. Now, I had to cut the pins to remove this because this was really, really stuck in there. A lot of old flux that was sort of all burnt up really bad. And I kind of lifted some of these traces. So this one down here is lifted pretty bad. This one is lifted a little bit. This one is kind of broke and lifted kind of, but I think I'll be able to solder a new one in just fine. There's a little bit of lifting on one of these solder pads for Q5, but not to the point where I'm worried. They're intact. They'll lay down. I'll be able to get that soldered fine. And especially the bridge rectifier is a two-sided solder pad, so solder has to flow through to the top. So I'll clean out these vias and make sure everything's fine before replacing them. But just because there's, you know, sign of heat here doesn't necessarily mean that these parts are bad. You want to test them, right? So, you know, there are proper ways of testing these things, but I always forget them and then look them up and then struggled even then to remember what I'm doing, you know, going back and forth. So generally speaking, what I like to do is compare a suspected bad part against a known good part. So here is a brand new 2N3055 that I got from Peter, arcadepartsrepair.com. This was made in the 10th week of 2020, so relatively new. And what I can do is, especially with things like these, you know, transistors and bridge rectifiers, I can use my diode test on my multimeter and compare the readings that I'm getting from, you know, comparing the suspected bad part against the known good part. So I have my meter set to diode test, and I'm just going to kind of go through all the options of what to check for. So I see with, you know, black, my common lead on the case. To the right, I have nothing. To the left, I have a voltage drop of 0.59. So again, nothing on the right, 0.59 on the left, and I can compare over here. And I have, you know, 0.51, so that's within range. And over here, instead of nothing, I have 0.867. So that tells me right off the bat that this 2N3055 is bad. Because again, on a good one, I should have no connection between, you know, black on the case and red on the right lead. But here I have this 0.867. So that tells me that there's some sort of short going on. I can you know, repeat the test by going like this, where I just did black. Switched hands. So nothing on that side, nothing on that side, and sure enough here, nothing there, and nothing there. And then between the two, I get a voltage drop of 0.59 and 0.52 there. Switching the sides, switching the leads, nothing on that in that direction. And I do have another connection here. So yeah, this 2N3055 is bad. So I found a bad part that I can go ahead and replace. So this is actually one of 4 2N3055s, one on the PCB and 3 on that remote heatsink. So, you know, these are very, very popular, very, very common power transistors. Even today, I think they're still used, still manufactured for sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace all 4 of them, just, you know, because I have them. They're not the cheapest thing in the world. They are a few bucks, but, you know, just to prevent something like this from going bad catastrophically, I'll go ahead and replace them. So with the the bridge rectifier here, I don't actually have an equivalent with me. But this is, you know, a different form factor. It's, you know, wire leads or legs instead of spade terminals here. But, you know, the way a bridge rectifier works, you know, is essentially the same, right? It's basically turning AC voltage into DC voltage. And so I can look at the one leg that's different here, that's longer than the others, is the one closest to the camera. And I got a cheat sheet if I flip over here. That is our positive leg, if the camera will focus right. So I'll start with our positive leg. And then I can find the positive leg over, let's see. It's the one that's different from all the others. So you see how the top two and the bottom right all sort of go left to right, and this one goes up and down. Its orientation, and if I look over here, I think that's even marked as the positive leg. So I'll have the positive leg pointing down. And again, with my meter on diode test, I can see what my readings are. So between left on the positive and red on the right, I get a voltage drop there. So we'll do the same thing here. And yep, we get a voltage drop. And then sort of going to the other side, we have our voltage drop there. And I'll do this one, voltage drop there. Okay, and then if I switch them, I think in this direction I should get nothing. Nothing on that side. Nothing on this side. Sorry if this is not the most thrilling content right here. Testing bridge rectifiers, but so far so good. This is testing okay. I'll turn it around 180, and we'll test the bottom here, and we get a reading in that direction with the red on the negative lead. We get a reading there, and we also should get one like this because it's sort of backwards. So that does that, and that does this. So this bridge rectifier is actually testing okay. So kind of bad on me for essentially destroying this thing while pulling it out, but that's okay. I'll get a replacement. I'll get a replacement of a higher rating too. Bridge rectifiers can be replaced. You know, these are rated with both current, so amperage, and voltage ratings, and you can actually go up with both. You can always go up with bridge rectifiers. You can't go down. So I'll increase actually both the voltage rating and the amperage or current rating for the replacement, and I'll get a new one in there. We'll get it all cleaned up. Make sure it's installed properly with good continuity and everything. I'm also going to pull some other components and test them. I think there are some other transistors, especially in the 5-volt circuit, which these two parts are both on. So I'll pull those and test those, and I'll order some parts here. I'll probably order like basically all the transistors. I'll order these two larger resistors down here that actually look like they might have been worked on before. There's some solder blobs on top. I might go ahead and replace all the tantalum caps. I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll get that all cleaned up, but it's going to take a couple of days for those parts to come in. So I'll go ahead and place that order. In the meantime, I want to turn my attention to the next thing that we're going to do, which is the control panel. So let me get set up to do that. Okay, here again, I think I might have shown this before, is the Jungle King control panel that I was able to source from a fellow member of the CLOV forums. What's nice about this is this control panel has never been converted. Nobody's ever drilled additional holes or tried to fill in the original, so it's in relatively good shape. Obviously, the control panel overlay has definitely seen better days, and I want to replace this. I have a reproduction control panel overlay that I got from this old game. But before we can apply the new one, we obviously have to remove the old one and prep the metal control panel for the new control panel overlay. So I'm going to remove the control panel overlay. There is a bit of rust in a couple of different places, and I could see some poking through where the original CPO has cracked. So we'll clean that up. I'll probably, once I get everything taken off, I'll throw a quick coat or two of white spray paint onto the top just to help the colors pop through of the new CPO that goes on top. In terms of removal techniques, I've tried a couple different things in the past. For the last one with the Qbert, I really like the technique that I used for the first time successfully that Dell from Dell's Arcade recommends, which is to use a Dremel or any similar multi-tool, oscillating tool, with a scraper attachment and basically just scrape the thing off. Makes pretty quick work of it, comes off like butter. You get the old CPO off in just a couple of minutes, and then you can come back with acetone and get the old all the residue from the adhesive from the original CPO off. So why don't we fire it up and do it with this Jungle King. Okay, that one was quite a bit more stubborn than the Qbert CPOs, and you know, every time it's going to be a little bit different. You know, different manufacturers used different levels of quality and durability and adhesive and prep, and you know, each of these cabinets has led a very different life over the past 40 years in different environments and whatever. So, but I think it came off relatively well. Like I said, next step that I'm going to do, I'll do this off camera. I'll sort of wipe this all down with acetone to get the remnants of the glue off. And then I'll take my wire wheel to it, kind of lightly go over any place I see a little bit of rust, sort of in the bend here, around most of the screw holes, around where the joystick mounts in the center there, to get that all nice and good. And then, like I said, I'll hit it also with a coat or two of white spray paint, let that all dry, and maybe hit the back with a coat of black just to prevent rust. And then we'll be ready to put the reproduction control panel overlay on this thing. All right, and while I'm waiting for all of those parts to be delivered for the power supply, I'm ready to go ahead and apply the new reproduction control panel overlay onto our control panel. So you've seen me do this before with Joust and with Pango and maybe some others. Every time's a little bit different. So this is a metal control panel like the Pango. This is a reproduction control panel overlay, or CPO, from This Old Game. That's also where I got the Joust and Pango CPOs from. And I've done the prep already. I think last you saw I was scraping off the old CPO. I got all that off. I was able to get all of the residue off very, very easily, actually, with acetone. Really just poured some acetone on it, let it sit there for 10 seconds, and then scraped it off with a metal scraper. It came right off like butter. And then I did a little bit of sanding with, I think I used 120 and 220 just to kind of get everything off, all the rust off. I didn't have to use the wire wheel. That sanding was enough to get all of the rust off, all of the residual adhesive, and that was really nice. And then I spray painted it. So, because I got it down to the bare metal, I spray painted the underside with the Rust-Oleum Universal Satin Black that I always use. It's my go-to black spray paint. And I used the white version of that paint for the top of the control panel. So this is Rust-Oleum Universal Satin White. I did 2 coats on the underside with the black, and then 3 coats of white on top, just because white needs a little bit more help to really cover everything up. And the reason I spray painted the top white was to help the colors pop on the reproduction CPO. So even the best repro CPOs, and I think, you know, This Old Game does some of the better ones, they're not quite as thick as the original, so it's a little bit see-through, a little bit, you know, if you hold it up to an intense light, you'll get, you know, light coming through. So if you apply these on top of a control panel that's been painted black, you know, those colors can be muted a little bit. And this has some very bright colors, including whites and reds and greens and yellows. So I want those colors to pop as much as possible and not be muted at all. So by painting the top of the control panel, which will be underneath the new CPO, it'll help those colors be a little bit more brighter, a little bit more vibrant. So I let that paint dry completely, really for 2 days. I kind of painted when it was a little bit more humid and a little bit colder than really I should have been painting, but let it dry for over 2 days. So I think we're in good shape. It's nice and warm right now. It's in the 60s. Half the neighborhood kids are outside in my yard playing right now. So I think we're ready to apply this. I'm going to use the wet method, which involves using Rapid Tack. I've already cleaned off the top of the control panel with Rapid Tack. This is sort of, it says a cleaner and application fluid. It kind of makes it easier for you to apply an adhesive piece of artwork onto side of a cabinet or control panel or something. It kind of gives you a little bit of time before the adhesive really sets. So you're kind of wet everything, and then apply the adhesive and then hold it down. And as it dries, that adhesive will really lock in. But it gives you a little bit of flexibility. If you apply it on, you know, not straight or crooked or something, you can take it off and put it back on. Because if you don't use the wet method, once you put that artwork down, it's not going anywhere. So I've got everything lined up. I used a flashlight to line up the hole of the joystick with the sort of, you can't really see it right now, it's covered up, that sort of red circle in the middle designed to be kind of the surround of the joystick hole. And I got everything straight. I think it's all perfect, or about as perfect as I can do. You know, got to satisfy that OCD. And I've got it clamped in place. So I've got this scrap piece of wood and some clamps holding it down. I've had these on, these spring-loaded clamps on the bottom, on the edge, just to kind of help bend the control panel, because we have this sort of bend on the front, and then we'll have to wrap around the edges. I do have my heat gun here ready to go, because that can help, you know, kind of encourage it, you know, on a low setting. From a distance to kind of help that, make that bend, help the new CPO make that bend. So we're going to do this in sort of 2 pieces. I'm going to bend back this as far as it'll go. I will cut off, you know, a good couple of inches of the backing paper. I will spray it all down with the Rapid Tack, and then I'll squeegee it out like this, and we'll get these first, you know, 3 or so inches of the CPO onto the control panel. Then I'll remove the clamps, remove this piece of wood, clamp it back down on the piece that has been adhered, and then I will do the same thing. I'll remove the rest of the backing paper, spray the Rapid Tack, and lay it down. I'll probably use the heat gun a little bit to help with the major bend. And then kind of once I have it all clamped down and in place, I'm gonna wanna wrap the top and the bottom kind of around the edges of the control panel. I'll end up trimming the sides. I think it's lined up perfectly on the right side, so I won't have to trim here. I've got maybe 2 millimeters of overhang on the left side that I'll have to trim off, but then we'll fold over the top and bottom, and that'll need some heat to really help it make that hard bend. So I talked through all of that just so it's a little bit easier for me to concentrate while I do this without having to talk my way through it with the narration. But you know what, I wanted to grab gloves for this, so let me do that real quick. All right, so here we go. I'm going to get the backing paper starting to come off, and I'll cut this, and then I'll spray, and then we will lay this sucker down. So let me come down here and see if it may be a little bit tricky to get this backing paper started with the gloves on. All right, here we go. Okay, after a bit of finessing, I think we're in relatively good shape. I ended up getting another piece of wood to really kind of sandwich and squeeze the bottom part down, so I think we're okay. I'm not really seeing any air bubbles of any kind, and it's not going to be bad. I think this is air release material, and we've got some holes, for the buttons that provide a shorter path for the air to escape if I need to squeeze it out, rather than going all the way to the edge. All it has to do is make it to the closest hole. So just trying to burp out, squeeze out any remaining what's this stuff? Rapid Tack, yeah. So I'm going to put a couple more clamps just on the edges here around the bend, but I think we're in good shape. So I'm going to let this dry overnight, and yeah, we should be in good shape. So hopefully those parts get delivered soon, and we can continue our rebuild of that wonderful classic Taito linear power supply. But we're making progress, that's for sure. And here's how we're looking. A little bit like acupuncture or a certain classic horror movie character. But yeah, as usual, I went overboard with the clamps and everything. I actually got a few other pieces of wood to kind of strategically position to really hold the new reproduction CPO in place, and I'm pretty happy with it right now. I mean, obviously, I won't be able to see everything until the big reveal when I take these clamps off and all the wood and everything. So I'm going to bring this inside and let it dry overnight, maybe really for 2 days before I pull all the clamps off. But that should be good to go, and then we can cut out the holes for the buttons and that sort of thing, and kind of trim the one edge that has a little bit of overhang. But so far, I think we're doing okay. And good news, my parts were delivered for the linear power supply, so I got a bit of work ahead of me here. So here's everything kind of spread out. Again, I had to order parts from Peter at arcadepartsandrepair.com, which is my typical go-to place. I had to order some from DigiKey. That's all these sort of electrostatic bags over here. And I even had to order some from Electronics Express. I think that's my first time ordering from them. Again, just because some of these parts are a little bit uncommon and hard to find. No one's ever really done a rebuild kit, so I kind of put together one here of everything that I'm planning on doing, and it's over 50 parts, especially if you include the 2N3055 bottle cap transistors on the remote heatsink, and some of the Trifurcon pins on the power harness. But basically, here's what we're going to do. So there's a couple of larger resistors right here that I'm planning to replace. These actually look like they might have been reflowed at some point with a little bit of the solder balled up. I'm going to replace all of the tantalum capacitors. Two of them right here I couldn't find exact matches for, so I'm going to throw some electrolytics in there, which should be okay. You should be able to replace tantalums with electrolytics. The rest are going to have brand new tantalums thrown in there. I'm going to replace the 3 bridge rectifiers, the one that I removed already destructively, this bridge rectifier here, and then the smaller inline one over here. I'm going to replace all the diodes, all the diodes, including the Zener diodes on the board. I think there's 9 of them, or excuse me, a dozen of them. There's some ICs, there are these 3 ICs here. I think there's a timer in there, and I forget what the other ones do. But I've got them. I'm not going to replace them right off the bat. I'm going to, sort of install everything else and see if it works before messing with the ICs. There is an optical or opto coupler sort of over here tucked in that I couldn't find, readily available a replacement for. So I'm going to leave that as is for now. That's got an asterisk on my little cheat sheet here. I'm going to try to replace the 2 voltage regulators. One of them is, it's kind of a pain. It's a very small case over here, and the one that I got is not an exact match. It's a slightly larger form factor, so I don't know. I might try doing everything else and testing without it. That's why I got, again, a note here sort of saying I don't have an exact match, so I can kind of force something to work in there, but it's not going to be pretty. So I might just leave it. I'm going to replace all of the transistors. Again, the 4, 2, and 3055s, the one that I've already removed that goes right on the PCB, the 3 others that go on this remote heatsink, and all these other kind of, I don't know what you would call these, cylinder shape, I don't know, UFO shape transistors. I forget what the actual name for them is. So we'll replace all of those, and there's some others here on these heat sinks. A couple of them are SCRs, I think. I'm going to replace both of the 14-pin headers right there, and the corresponding on the power harness, the connector housing and the trifurcon pins. Will replace all of that. So yeah, a lot of work. I got a lot of work ahead of me. Not sure if I'll be able to get it all done tonight, but we'll stretch this into tomorrow. I got plenty of time until this video is set to be released. So I'm going to go and do all of that work. I am going to test, every part that I pull off, I am going to test with my multimeter, except for the tantalums. I'm not going to worry about pulling out the ESR meter for that. I'm going to test, everything else that I pull off though, and make a note if it was bad or not, just for my own edification to know if I'm wasting my time or whatnot. Like I said, we've already found one of the 2N3055s, the one on the PCB is shorted, is blown. So we know we have at least one bad part, but I'm going to do all the rest of this. And a lot of these, like I have what the original part was and what I'm replacing it with. In many cases, it's an upgrade. It's a higher rating for the part. So, and I'll make this available. I'll put a link in the video description down below to all of the parts that I ordered from Peter at arcadepartsandrepair.com and DigiKey and Electronics Express. And I'll probably, put a PDF or something with this information in case you want to do something similar if you're as foolhardy as I am. So yeah, let me go and knock this out, and then we should be ready to wire this back up and test it out and hopefully no longer blow a fuse. So wish me luck. It's 4 days later, and I've literally spent the last 4 evenings meticulously removing and testing and replacing, nearly all of the components on this classic Taito linear power supply. Look at this list. I went through everything, replaced everything, and, I probably didn't need to do all of this. In all of the testing, there was really only 2 parts that I found bad. And if we look at the list here, the first one I noticed was Q5, the 2N3055 bottle cap transistor. That's the one that's right on the little mini heatsink that's on the PCB. That was shorted. That's this guy right over here. This 2N3055 was shorted. And regulator number 2, which is a 79L05, that's this little teeny tiny jelly bean transistor looking guy next to the smallest of the 3. Yes, there are 3 filter caps on this thing. That one was shorted too, or at least it wasn't testing correct when I compared it with a good one. So those were the only 2 parts that tested bad. Every other part I pulled and checked, and I did replace all of them, right? So every single, well, first these 2 sort of larger resistors down here, all of the tantalum caps, the 3 bridge rectifiers, 1, 2, and 3 right there, all of the diodes and the voltage regulators, all of the transistors, and even the 2 14-pin header connectors right here. I replaced all of that. Well, actually, I didn't replace all of the transistors. I actually found 4 transistors on this thing that weren't marked on the parts list or on the schematic. I've got them here, D13, 14, 16, and 17. There's one here and one here. I don't know, they're kind of in a couple different places. I pulled all of them and tested them. Only one of them was sort of a normal 1N4004, which can be replaced with a 1N4007. The other 3 were sort of a bit more unique values, so I didn't have them on hand, and I hadn't ordered them because they weren't on the parts list, so I didn't replace them. But I pulled them; they tested fine, so I put them back in. So there are some larger diodes on this power supply that I did not replace. The little voltage regulator that went bad, I had to make another order to DigiKey to get the exact right part. The one that I was going to replace it with was a little bit bigger and wouldn't actually fit. I mean, physically it would fit into the vias, but with this filter cap in the way, it wouldn't fit. So had to make a second order for that. And yeah, in these 4 days out here cold in the garage, I managed to come down with a cold. So if you hear that in my voice, if it doesn't sound as soothing as it did at the beginning of this episode, that's why. So yeah, replaced a lot of parts, over 50 parts. And in most cases, the parts were upgraded with a, you know, a compatible part, but something a little bit beefier. And, you know, in my sort of, you know, perhaps foolish attempt to try to, you know, bulletproof this thing, which there's no real such thing as anything that's bulletproofed. But yeah, so I think we're pretty much ready to go. I've got the insulators where they should be. I've got the heat sinks on. Some of them needed heat sink compound, you know, thermal paste, that sort of thing. I think all the parts are in correctly. Yeah, what didn't I replace? I didn't replace the LEDs. I didn't replace most of the resistors. I didn't replace the 3 filter caps. And one of them I'm a little bit worried about. It doesn't look like it's bulging or anything, but this one has been scratched up. Some of the coating, you know, sort of the metal is kind of exposed of this, you know, this second filter cap right here, but I think we're going to be okay. So didn't replace the pots. I didn't replace the ICs. I had purchased them, but did not replace them. I've got a new fuse in for the one that we were blowing before. So fingers crossed, I think it's time to test this thing. So let's get mounted on the tripod. I've got my multimeter plugged into the AC, one of the AC outage outlets. I think this is like what the monitor plugs into, one of them. And we'll put this on the multimeter onto AC volts. We're looking for 4 LED lights to be lit up for the +5, -5, +12, and -12, although I think this game really only uses +5 and +12. And I'm kind of nervous. So let me plug this thing in. All right, it's plugged in. Let me just look at everything. So the transformer is plugged into the power supply. Can't quite see it. The little remote heatsink with 3 more 2N3055 bottle cap transistors over here. That's plugged in. Oh man, I'm a little bit nervous here. I still have the instruction bezel lights plugged in. So yeah, we should see around 120 volts AC on the multimeter. And again, hopefully 4 red LED lights turn on here. Let's do the main power switch. Let's do our first interlock. And then here we go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I think we're good. No. No, we're not. I mean, something's working. Let's see, these 2 right here are for -5 and -12. The +5 LED light was on, but now it's out. And the +12 is dim. Yeah, you can't even see it on camera. The far LED is lit. We still have the lights from the bezel instruction, you know, backlit thing. We've got about 125, which I think is probably okay. But I wonder if maybe that LED is bad. You know, let me actually go back. I'm going to look at the video footage and see if I see anything blowing. So let me go do that real quick. Okay, after I cut away, I hooked up my multimeter to the headers on, you know, the 5 volt and the 12 volt lines. -5 and -12 are great, so that circuit I think is doing okay. The +5 was actually around 1.4 something, and the +12 was like 4 and change. So that would explain why the 12 volt LED was dim and the 5 volt was out. So I spent some time with the manual and reading old cloth threads, and there's a couple of things I want to try. The first thing I did was address the pots. So there are these 4 pots here to set the voltage and the current limiter, current limit for the +5 and +12 which is really what the board uses. So I cut off the hot glue that was from the factory where they had set it and sort of used hot glue to fit it in place. So I cut the hot glue off, to break the pots free. Squirted a little bit of deoxit D5, not necessarily the correct deoxit for this application, but whatever. And worked it back and forth, each of them back and forth a bunch of times, just in case they were dirty. And I've got them all centered. And I should be able to now to adjust it, hopefully, if that's the issue. If that doesn't fix it, I think this IC here, U3, is actually a voltage regulator. And there's two that are like the same chip. And I can replace those two, but we're getting close. So yeah, we're all plugged back in. We're ready to go. Let me just keep an eye on this. We're looking for something in the neighborhood of 5 volts. And we can always adjust it. So this is the 5 volt adjustment, 5 volt current limiter, 12 volt adjustment, and 12 volt current limiter. So pull the center lock, 3, 2, 1. Oh, look at that! What the heck? Oh my goodness, what is going on? You saw that, right? For a brief second, it was at like 5.7. And then it drops to 1.3. So maybe it's just way too high. That's the limiter. Here's the voltage, actually. Let's try adjusting this. That barely does anything. Adjusting that barely does anything. What about over here? Okay. Can I max it out? Yeah, I can barely do anything. We see if that 5 volt is on at all. Turn off the house lights. Yeah, I mean, you can't quite see it. It's just really dim. Yeah, and that's crazy. It was briefly there. It was briefly there. Let me try doing something else. So, 2 is the highest we can get it. Let me see about this. If this takes it down low, and this, so, 0.86, that maxes it out. I'm going to turn it all the way down on both. I'm going to do the same with, actually, let me check that 12 volts real quick, which should be, we count the positions because of course they're not marked. It's position 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, let's throw it back on. See, it's it's doing the same thing. So let's turn this all the way down. That's up. That's up too, so that's not it. That's up. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, man. But you saw that, right? For a brief moment, we had good voltage. I know there's a crowbar circuit. I don't know if that has something to do with it. When it's too high. Yeah, and there's just nothing here. That's as high as I can get the voltage with the current limiter down. And as I bring up the current limiter, I can't get any higher than 12.14 on the 5 volt, and then let's see, that should be 12 volts, and it's at, you can see it. I don't get it. Max I can get that is 4.7. Okay, I am going to try to replace, maybe both voltage regulators are shot. See if I can find anything warm. No, I don't know. I tested all of the fuses and they're good. Yeah, I just, for the life of me, I don't know what's going on. Look at that. So yeah, let me try removing, and I'll probably throw a socket in and throw some new voltage regulator chips in there. But other than that, I don't know what else to try. So let me go do that real quick and then I'll be back. All right, here's my last attempt, at least for today. I went ahead and socketed and replaced 3 of the 4 ICs on the board. So there are these 2, I think they're, oh, what are they? 723 voltage regulators at U3 and U4, and then a 556 over here at U2. U1 is this weird optocoupler thing that I'm not sure if I've found a replacement for yet, but I haven't done that little, I think it's a 6 or 8 pin IC right there. These are 14 pin, 7 legs on each side. I cut the old ones out just to make it a lot easier because I don't want to lift any traces on this board or pads or anything. So, okay, I've got everything plugged back in, reconnected. I've got my multimeter on the 5-volt output line. So, I don't know what's going to happen. We want to see 4 bright lights. Maybe we need to make some adjustments, but here we go. I am plugging in. Whoa. Oh, I forgot to do that. Oh, forgot to reattach the main power. So yeah, other than those 2 parts that I found bad, the other sort of issue that I had, relatively minor one, is there were some plastic kind of spacers in these, I don't know, TO220 transistors right here. Each one was supposed to have 2 sort of plastic insert spacers to kind of align the holes, and 4 of them broke. So, but I don't think it's meant to short a grounding because there's no like connection anywhere. Anyway, I think that's fine. I don't think that's what's causing our problem. So, anyway, here we go. The main power cord has been reconnected to the transformer assembly. I am plugging in the power cord to the main outlet. Here we go. Let's throw the power switch is on. First interlock is open. And here we go. 3, 2, 1. Holy smokes! Nope. The same thing happened. Guys, I get so excited for a fraction of a second. I get so excited. I see it high at like 5.7, and then it drops. So is that crowbar circuit? Oh my goodness. Let's try doing something here. Let's check our 12 volt, which I think is this. Yeah, see, they're both still bad. So it's got to be something in that circuit, right? That's bringing them both down. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to be the same thing, right? Not adjustable. I mean, not in a meaningful way. And even with, see, that's up to 4.6 in that direction. But, yeah, 4.7 is the highest I can get that. Let me turn them both minimum. I've already done this. Yeah, so something, is it the caps? Maybe I need to replace these caps. The 3, I don't know which one of these, I forget, is the filter cap, but I'm guessing it's something common to the 12 volt and the 5 volt line. But you see it, right? When I turn it on, it flashes 5.7. Oh man. Because what else, what haven't I done? I haven't replaced these big ceramic resistors. There's 3 transistors on the board that I haven't replaced. There's a bunch of regular resistors I haven't done, and I haven't done the 3 big filter caps. And I feel like I've replaced so much, and I've spent 4 evenings working on this thing. There's almost nothing left. So, yeah, here we go. Turn it back on again. Yeah, it's not right. So, I don't know. I don't think that's it for tonight. I don't know if I'm giving up on this power supply. I mean, I'm giving up for tonight because I got to edit this thing, and I actually have to pick up a cabinet tomorrow. Shh. What else could it be? If you've seen, you know, there's no videos on YouTube of anyone rebuilding one of these things. And I thought, you know, maybe, fingers crossed, I'd be able to be the first one. But sure enough, nope. Nope. Nothing doing here. Nothing doing here, even cranked out to the max. Yeah, 2.1. It's not enough. Is it because I don't have a load? Is that it? I don't think so. Something's just not right. Something's just not right. So if anybody out there has any suggestions, other than see if I can find that opto coupler. It's a H11AA2 and the 3 filter caps, and then what else? There's 3 large ceramic resistors and the 3 diodes that I didn't replace, but I tested them and they were all good. I pulled them out of circuit and tested them. I checked every single solder joint. No shorts, no nothing. Good kind of continuity. Is there some, what is that? Oh, that's a glass cap. There's some resistor wandered out of spec? I don't know. Right now, I can't end it like this. Okay, you know what we're gonna do? All right, we can't end on a low note. Let's go down into the basement, into the arcade. We'll take a look at the control panel overlay that I applied. We'll take off all the clamps, see what that looks like, and we'll wrap up the video down there. Oh, gee whiz. All right, like I said, we've got to end on a positive note. So here we are back down in the basement. I actually changed the lineup just a little bit. I shifted all of the games in the main row to the left by about 12 inches. That let me slide the Asteroids Cabaret in over here. So you'll see what that looks like in an upcoming live stream, I'm sure, all lit up and everything. But anyway, so again, here is the brand new reproduction Jungle King control panel overlay that I got from this old game. It's been, I attached this, I applied this, gosh, 3 days ago now. So it's been sitting down here in climate controlled basement, kind of drying. So I think we can go ahead and pop off all of these clamps and hopefully, just toss them on the ground. Hopefully we've got a nice result here. I mean, the colors are beautiful. It looks really nice, but you never know until we take everything off. And yeah, I know this is probably overkill. I've got my level here. I was making sure all the games were level when I slid them. The leg levelers are right, but you know, a basement isn't always exactly level. So, all right, taking these off. And yeah, some of these pieces of wood are actually part of the what I need. So Photoboy, one of my channel members, sent these to me to attach on the backside. So I can't throw some of these aren't scrap pieces of wood. So we'll do the top here. So yeah, man, that thing defeated me. Yeah, but usually things go okay on this channel. So if this is your first time, thank you. Please consider subscribing. I release new videos like this basically every Sunday. You know, restoring, repairing, sometimes playing these games. Like I said, I've got a pickup tomorrow that I've got to get to. I've got, oh, come on. I've got my kids have playoff basketball games in the morning. Oh, man. Thanks for all the likes, shares, the comments, the subscriptions. All of that means a ton to me. If you really like what I'm doing here on the channel, buy a t-shirt in the merchandise shop or consider becoming a channel member. You get access to some awesome picks like our awesome, I can't even talk, some awesome perks like our, that's another piece of wood that I need to keep, like our members only Discord. We have monthly members only live streams. You get early access to all new videos, typically a day early. And yeah, I want to give a huge thank you to our 3 newest channel members. That would be Dave Weston, Bob Freeman, and John, who goes by Kaworu online. And yeah, thank you all for your support. Click on that join button down below if you want to learn more about what it means to become an Overtime Arcade channel member. So I think we are looking pretty good. Looking at different angles in the light right around this edge. I don't immediately see, maybe right here. It's just a tiny bit. We push down maybe, but yeah, we got to trim a little bit off the edge here, but I knew that. We've obviously got to cut our holes, but I think for the most part, we are in really, really good shape. So there's what it's looking like right there. We'll come in and take a closer look. I'm not seeing any major air bubbles. Maybe I need to press this down, squeeze that down a little bit, but that's pretty normal. So, but look at that. I think that came out great. That's going to look fantastic on the cabinet once I repair it. So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here. As always, I'm Charlie. You've been watching Overtime Arcade, and I'll see you next time.
Overtime!